just for reference, if you're just joining us, I had South Carolina at 10. Joe had Notre Dame at 9, which is going to be the difference here in the power ranking.
Okay, can we please, as we have this conversation, and this also goes to listeners in the comments, not bring up, we're not talking about resume, we're not talking about what teams have done. I'm talking about what these two teams would do if they faced off with one another and if they played one another.
Okay.
I'm willing to admit that South Carolina would probably be 12 or 11. I don't know what order I would put Indiana and South Carolina at the very end of the top 12. They're in the conversation in one that I considered. But I believe that I think that Notre Dame would be able to beat South Carolina. I understand, and I've attributed credit to the hot streak and the success that South Carolina has had. The most impressive thing that they did is, with their backs up against the wall against Missouri, go down and score. That's something that a lot of teams can't do successfully because it requires just so much chemistry and flow on offense and all the big plays that are required for them to do it. I think it's very easy and very simple to look past Notre Dame because they are playing a weak schedule. They still have a very consistently dominant defensive line that I think would have success against South Carolina's offensive line, which I continue to bring up because it's important to discuss. And I also believe that Riley Leonard has improved on a week-to-week basis. We won't know for certain how good Riley Leonard could be in a matchup like this until he plays in one. And that's why I think that this is a complicated conversation to have, and it is not a simple yes or no. I'm not declaring this as a bona fide Notre Dame wins, guaranteed, South Carolina can't win. Just trying to bring up here that there's a lot of moving pieces.
All right. So you actually hit on 2 points. You just went the opposite direction. I think Lenore Sellers has been doing this the last 6 weeks.
Don't disagree. Don't disagree.
So here's the problem that I have. Lenore Sellers is doing that against better competition that Riley Leonard is playing. It looks better when he does it.
Okay.
So that's number one.
Okay.
I don't disagree with you that Notre Dame would probably eat up, the South Carolina offensive line. The problem is that, look, man, I've seen him do it against freak of natures at A&M too. Like I've seen him have pressure in his face, escape, throw the football when he needs to, run the ball when he needs to. And to be honest with you, Joe, they have one of the most underrated backfields in the country. Raheem Sanders and Lenore Sellers right now, Joe, it's pound football, man. And
So the only, I don't disagree that they're not a super dynamic duo, but
let me finish. But
all right, finish. Sorry.
Okay, I'm not saying that against Notre Dame. That's just who they've been. Okay, we can't ignore of who they've been. Joe, in the first part of SEC play, in their first 3 games in SEC play, South Carolina gave up 22 sacks.
Yes.
And the last 3, they've given up 5. So, again, I see a team all around them offensively getting better. And when defensively they had an off night, Lenore Sellers was the one that picked them up and beat them. Joe, let me ask you this question. Outside of A&M, if you looked at South Carolina, there is a common opponent that both of these teams share, by the way. Both of them. And it is A&M. Even if I took that out for what it's worth, A&M has played and won against tougher competition too. So, again, there's got to be a part of, and I keep saying this, what have you done throughout the season? Now, Joe, there is a common opponent here too. It's A&M.
Okay, but wait.
Notre Dame.
Before you do this, we have to understand the difference of those matchups. Okay?
Completely
South
agree.
Carolina gets A&M at home. Notre Dame gets to go on the road to play Texas A&M. And as much as you want to bring up, it's Mike Elko's first game, which is true. It also was the first start ever for Riley Leonard in that offense with a new offensive coordinator. So I think that we need to bring up here that
they had 8 players on A&M's defense that were brand new too. And you scored 23.
I just don't think that they both beat the same opponent, but I just don't think it's fair to claim that South Carolina's win over the same exact team is significantly better because the circumstance is different.
I don't care about fair. I care about what my eyes saw. My eyes saw South
All right,
Carolina.
sorry, not fair. What's right and what's wrong? I don't think that it's 100% right that South Carolina's win over Texas A&M is more impressive.
I beg your pardon?
They obviously beat Texas A&M by more. They obviously did. The way that they beat them was more impressive. It's not vastly, significantly more impressive, though. There is not some massive separation gap because of the circumstance. There is not.
Joe, I'm going to be real with you. There is a little bit of a separation here.
There is a little bit about home field advantage, man. Like,
Joe, I'm sorry, but take out A&M. Even if you did that, they have a 3-point loss against Bama. You have a 3-point loss against NIU, buddy. This is how I feel about when everybody talks about Notre Dame, okay? The NIU loss doesn't mean shit anymore. It doesn't. It doesn't. If you're going to tell me that an Ole Miss and Bama loss is anywhere in the remote stratosphere.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I did not say that, and that was not said.
Okay.
I think that, look, it has been increasingly complicated to talk about Notre Dame. This, in the history of the college football playoff, is going to Notre Dame's season this year. If they end up getting in and they beat Army, blah, 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 they make it into the playoff. They're going to have the most confusing and hard to support, but hard to argue against schedule in the history of the playoff. I firmly believe that because of the NIU loss and because they haven't really played anybody. Like, it is going to be very, very hard to defend and also to attack against. I think that the problem with talking about Notre Dame, Blake, is that there is no in-between. I have tried to be one of the few individuals that has been the in-between. It's either the Notre Dame fans that are saying that Notre Dame is so freaking good, and like you just said, that the NIU loss didn't happen and we should completely ignore it. I can't agree with that side. But I can't get behind the other side of the pendulum here, Blake, that is saying that because they lost to NIU, everything that they've accomplished is a moot point. It means nothing.
What have they accomplished?
They have, and they can't help their schedule, and I keep repeating this, they have blown out every single team that they have played.
But you also just said that they have accomplished something. I mean, Joe, there's everybody in the SEC right now would love that schedule.
I understand. I completely understand that, and it has been a talking point that has been brought up over and over again. But we can't ignore. We're not talking about a BYU type season for Notre Dame where they're scraping by and the ball is bouncing their way. They have left no doubt in every single matchup, and that has to be recognized.
So BYU's play more ranked opponents this month than you've played all year.
We both know here that the Big 12 competition.
How do we know? You argue with me about Penn State and Indiana this past week. You said, well, how do you know? And I said recruiting. So now you're going to come back and say, well,
I can sit here and say that the middle to back end of the ACC is more competitive than the middle to back end of the Big 12. There are some really freaking bad Big 12 teams, and they do not recruit on the same level of any of the other. I also
say their second best team is SMU, and their top is really bad too. That's what she said. Okay. I mean, there comes a part here too, Joe. Think about this. There's 4 games in November. Is there not? There's 4 games played in November, right?
Oh, okay. Yes, on team schedules. Yes. Okay, I understand what you're saying.
What are we going to do with South Carolina if they beat 3 ranked opponents in the last 4 weeks?
It's an impressive finish to the season. I just still, and we've had this argument, man. I can't
I'm putting them in over to Notre Dame if I have to. I'm sorry.
I know we're not talking about the playoffs, so I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
I would.
Who are the best 10 teams?
I think they're a better team. All right.
BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your #1 source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.